I vividly remember waking up out of the coma and immediately going on the gambling apps. I was up six figures. That just got put into my bank account. Yeah, I gambled it all away. It spiraled out of control from there.
Hey everyone, welcome back. We have another problem gambler interview today, and I'm so happy to have you here. Today's guest has a really interesting story, and we're going to be diving into a couple of things that we really haven't dove into too much yet on this channel. I think there's going to be a lot of value there, so I'm really excited to introduce Jeff. Jeff, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm good. Thank you so much for coming on. So,
Of course.
just to get us started, who are you, where are you from, how old are you, and what's a little bit about your story?
I'm 41. I am about 30 miles north of Philadelphia. I've lived here basically my entire life. Yeah, my gambling addiction just kind of spiraled out of control, I would say, for like the last couple years. I had suffered a traumatic brain injury post neck surgery while being out on workman's compensation. I had foolishly purchased a pill when I had ran out of my meds and couldn't get a hold of my surgeon, and I had overdosed, nearly died on my front porch. Yeah, I was in a coma for 2 weeks and suffered a traumatic brain injury. But
Mm.
leading up to that, that's when my gambling had spiraled out of control, all online. I vividly remember waking up out of the coma and immediately going on the gambling apps. It spiraled out of control from there.
So, where did it all start? Did you start gambling like later on in life, or were you always someone who was, placing bets?
Um, No, I began gambling in my early 20s, to be honest with you. Never had an issue with it. I've been to Las Vegas, Reno, Lake Tahoe, Atlantic City, Wind Creek, which is a little north of me, I believe. I would never chase my losses. I'd bring in X amount. If I won, great. If I didn't, it wasn't like the end of the world. But the online gambling is really what triggered everything. I think just because of the ease of being anywhere and being able to do it. Any urge, you just turn on your phone. And I mean, there's so many apps available nowadays. It's
Mm.
ridiculous. Certain apps, if they wouldn't accept my deposit, I would just go on to another app and do a deposit on there and just bounce back from app to app to app. And I mean, play for 8, 10 hours some nights. I mean, it was
Wow.
just insane.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I was probably about the same amount of time on any given night when I was gambling. Were you a sports bettor, or was it casino games, or was it everything?
I did a couple sports bets. I wasn't really a fan of that. My primary game of choice was Lightning Roulette. Just the opportunity to win the 500x, if that number is selected as 500x and it actually hits, the payouts are ridiculous. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've won six figures on one spin. Now, granted, I'm
Yeah.
betting 5 to 10,000 per spin, but you get one of those 500x multipliers. I mean, you're getting six figures, no problem. That is really what started it. Is when I started to lose the thought of, well, if I just keep going and betting heavier, I can do it again. The house always wins. But given my circumstances with the traumatic brain injury, it really limited my impulse control, which was next to nothing to begin with before that. I'm not saying that is the primary reason that I'm in the situation I'm in, but that's a huge contributing factor as to where I'm at now, because my impulse
Sure.
control is zero.
Would you say that when you started gambling, like you started with smaller amounts and it grew, or were you always someone that once you started gambling, you were betting pretty large?
No, when I was younger, if I went to Las Vegas, for example, or wherever, like, I'd bring a couple thousand, but generally I would just do, like, say, $1,000 bet on black. If I win, great. I can pay for an extravagant dinner, and that would be it. I wouldn't feel the urge to go back. Like, I felt like, all right, well, I got a free dinner or two out of it. I was married at the time, so my wife would kind of keep me in check. She wasn't really a big gambler, but we did enjoy Vegas just for, like, the different high-end restaurants and the shopping and all that type of stuff. But since her and I divorced, I feel like my mental state kind of was a downward spiral from there, looking back on it. But then being out on workman's compensation, because I had two herniated discs in my neck, really freed up my time to
Mm.
do whatever I wanted at any given time. And I've always struggled with substance abuse in my past, primarily prescription. Oxycontin was a huge part of my life, but I had overcame that. And then I just feel like it kind of transitioned from the substances to then the gambling. Like I had a lull period where I was completely good. You know, I was working my 40-hour job. I was happy. I was content. I'd buy like scratch off tickets here and there, but nothing crazy, no urges to go to the casino or anything like that. But once I found the online gaming platforms, it was great in the beginning. You know, like I had the self-control to stop after the traumatic brain injury. Oh my God, it's bad. It's really bad.
Was it like the very first time that you started gambling after the injury, like that's when you started having the problem, or was there still like kind of a build up towards it becoming a problem?
Looking back on it, from what I recall, it definitely was a problem. But the problem then was I could win the money and actually cash out
Mm.
and, go a few days without the gambling. Post the hospital stay and the traumatic brain injury is when I couldn't stop. The more time you spend and the more money you spend, you're going to take losses, but I can't control myself. And with all the promotions that they offer, and I mean, I'm on virtually every app that's out there. One doesn't take your deposit, you just go to another one, and so on
Yeah.
and so forth.
Did you ever work with like a VIP host on any of these sites?
Yes, Jose.
Jose, what was that interaction like? Would he follow up with you if like you took too long to place your next deposit? Like, or was he just kind of sending you emails checking in? What was really going on?
So he was a nice guy.
Sure.
Obviously, that's his living. Like he wouldn't really follow up with me. Like I didn't get assigned a host until I reached 7-star status within Caesars, which is the highest tier status you can get. He'd update me and be like, yeah, your bonuses will be loaded on this date, so on and so forth. This is my take on it. Once he noticed that I wasn't wagering nearly the amount of money that I was previous, it was always me reaching out to him to be
Mm.
like, hey, Jose, can you load the bonus to my account, this, that, and the third. And once they see that you're not wagering what you used to wager, you don't hear from your host whatsoever.
Really? So they basically kind of said like, okay, like he's seeming like he's trying to stop, like let's leave him alone kind of thing.
I don't think it was they were seeing I was trying to stop. I think it was them saying I'm running out of money. It's just crazy because I gambled the most amount of money through Caesars,
Mhm.
and I get more promotional offers through BetMGM, which I've used, and I'm only platinum tier status with them. I get significantly more promotions through them than I do with Caesars, and I'm 7 stars. So
Mm.
that confuses me in itself.
I was just talking to someone about this the other day. It seems like there's a bit of randomness to who gets a VIP host and what the deals are that you're offered on these apps. So you're the only person that's experienced that for sure. But how about we steer it back into your story? So,
Yeah.
you had the injury and you're gambling to kind of fill the time to fill the boredom. What was the point at which you thought, maybe I should try to stop this?
I didn't have a stopping point until my PayPal balance was 25,000 in the negative, and my Discover card was $25,000 in the negative, and I had no money. That was my stopping point.
Most of the times, this is what I hear as well, and it was like that for myself. You think that, had you stayed around the break-even mark, you might still be gambling now.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because
Well,
I
yeah, go ahead.
I had gotten back to the point where I was even. I was content. I stayed off of the app for, a few weeks, and then the pure boredom. I don't go out much. Like before the traumatic brain injury, like I'd go out with friends, we'd go to the bar after a few drinks. I'd immediately log on to the apps and just not have conversations with the friends who I went to the bar with. My head's down in my phone constantly. I mean, I think initially, like my friends kind of got, I don't want to say like a kick out of it or enjoyment out of it, but they expected it from me. And,
Mm.
At that time I was winning money. So it's like, whoever was out with me, I'll pay the whole tab. I'll tip the bartender a couple $100, like I didn't care. The stupid thing on my part was like, I always wanted to buy like high ticket items. Like I wanted to get an Audi R8. I wanted to get a Rolex. And my thought process was, well, why not just keep gambling and try and double that money? Then the R8
Right.
is technically free. The Rolex is
Mhm.
free. And that's, you know how it works. That's never how it worked.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to think the same kind of things. It was just my mind's way of convincing me to keep gambling.
Yeah, I enjoy it. I enjoyed interacting with the live hosts, the roulette hosts and stuff like that. The comments that I would make would definitely get them to laugh. If I hit for $100,000, I'll just keep tipping 1,000, 1,000, 1,000. Like they every time they saw me in the lightning roulette room, they would always shout my name out and always make mention. Like I was always a good tipper, always have been. But in that like situation, you win that kind of money. Like I don't know. Like I like to share
What's
stuff.
Of course. Is that the thought process behind it? Like, are you tipping because one part of my gambling addiction, right? It was that I had a really inflated ego and I wanted to prove that I was the best and that I was a big shot and that here's money, I'm best.
Yeah.
Was that a part of it for you as well?
Now that you're saying it, probably yes.
Mhm.
In the moment, I don't think so. I just think I was just on such a high from a big win. I wanted to share the winnings with, the host, not, or, who was hosting the lightning roulette and, hook up my friends and stuff like that.
Now, Jeff, we've reached the point now where in your story you've accepted that there might be a problem here, the bank balances are low. What do you do to get help? What do you do to make it better?
That's the biggest hurdle that I'm trying to overcome at this point. I have sought help on several occasions. I did a treatment facility, not specified towards gambling, but they were well aware of my gambling situation post the overdose. It's just difficult with brain injuries. Like it's such a specific field, and doctors that have knowledge in that area are far and few. Like I was on a wait list for close to a year to talk to someone,
Wow.
and I like try and address this issue. Like I knew it was an issue. I feel like my parents knew it was an issue too. I mean, when I got out of the hospital, I wasn't even aware that there was a $40,000 FanDuel check sent to my house. Like it was maybe a month later when the check was about to expire. My mom brought it over and she's like, "Hey, I've been holding this for you. I was reluctant to give it to you, but the check expires. Like let's deposit this into your account." And I'm
Mhm.
not trying to take the accountability away from myself and say like, my parents should have known. I'm 41. Like that's not their responsibility, but they knew what exactly I was doing, and then it
Mm.
was out of control. And now they're really pissed because they're basically paying, my rent and all my bills because my social security disability case is pending and has been pending for roughly a year now.
So you had mentioned that the $40,000 check from FanDuel came in. Now, of course, the numbers are always relative to the person. Just because you're hearing numbers that might be higher than what you were gambling doesn't mean that you also might not have a gambling problem. But,
Correct.
for this question, let's say what's happened with this check from FanDuel? Were you able to put it away? Were you able to pay down debts, or was it something that you gambled back?
No, I was up that money at that point. I was up six figures. That just got put into my bank account, and yeah, I gambled it all away. At that point in time, I didn't even receive my six-figure workman's comp settlement yet either, and that
Mhm.
opened the floodgates even more for me. I had money at my disposal plus the winnings. Like at that point in time, I was still able to stay off the apps for a few days to a week. Like it wasn't as impulsive as it has been, I'd say, within the last year is when it really spiraled
Mm.
out of control for me.
I guess it kind of brings up a good point here of when you do have access to the money that is the temptation for you as a problem gambler, it
Mhm.
becomes really hard to fight that urge, especially when money's getting tight, you're seeing debts come up, or you're feeling like you actually have too much money sitting around. All these things can tempt people into placing that next bet. Are you still actively gambling now? And if not, do you know when your last bet was?
I will gamble with bonus bets. Like there'll be games where you spin a wheel and you'll get, like, for example, it was a few nights ago, I got a $50 bonus sports bet. I don't really
Mhm.
sports bet, but I wanted to make the most out of the $50 that they gave me. So I put
Sure.
together like a 13 leg ridiculous parlay. I don't even watch baseball, but I spent hours looking at the stats of, the players I was going to pick.
Mhm.
And I think the payout was like 5,500. And of course, one leg of the 13 leg parlay didn't hit. I was like, that's about right. But
Yeah. What's like the motivation of doing these bets still? Because it seems like, and correct me, you went from gambling a very large amount of money to now being okay with sticking with these bonus bets that are in comparison, much
no,
smaller. What's like the rationale behind it? Are you just trying to make some money back quickly? Are you just trying to stay excited? Like do you know what's sending you back?
I think a combination of everything you just said. Like, I never really sports bet in the height of my gambling addiction. It
Mm,
was strictly lightning roulette. It kills time for me.
mm,
And yeah, I was trying to get a quick win on a ridiculous parlay that I don't even watch baseball. But
yeah. It's really just interesting to hear about it because a lot of people will say, "I'm still doing the free bets," and I'm always just curious, like, is it so that you don't have to leave it behind? Because it doesn't seem like it's even about the money anymore.
I think it's a combination of both. Is yeah, I
Mm,
I don't want to leave it behind. Like, I am pissed off at myself and the
mm,
situation I put myself in. So I feel like in my delusional state of mind that, well, maybe putting together this crazy parlay and it hits, that'll be like a nice little starting point. But to be perfectly honest with you, when I was watching the games, I was already thinking of what parlay I'm going to put together next if I win. Undoubtedly, I would have wagered it all anyway. I probably would have made the deposit to my bank, but it would have went back to the casino. That's most likely
yeah.
what would have happened, if you want me to be honest with you.
Of course, that's what I was doing as well. So it's definitely not just you. Towards the end of my gambling, when I was trying to slow down, I did things just like that. I'll only use this amount or only play this bonus. And so I'm really thankful that you are here today to share your story with us because I'm gonna guess that a lot of people are in the same boat of not wanting to give it up.
It's tough. And I mean, I probably, with Instagram and everything like that, different channels I follow, other channels will get prompted. So I'll start to follow them. And I see a lot of these sports bettors offering, like, you pay them X amount to buy their picks. I've never
Mm,
personally done it, but that like is kind of a trigger for me, and I
mm,
know I should probably just unfollow them. But I have so much idle time on my hands with the Social Security disability pending.
right.
It's like all I do is take my medication, sleep, wake up, eat some food, take my medication, sleep some more. Like, I've been diagnosed with major depressive disorder, and I'm fully convinced it's due to the gambling. The doctors think there's a correlation between the traumatic brain injury, which research shows that is definitely, there's a correlation there. Same with, like I said earlier, the impulse control I didn't have any to begin with before
Mm.
the traumatic brain injury. So now it's non-existent.
It makes me think, have you sought out counseling? Have you ever tried a group meeting? Like, have you tried to fill the time? I'm just trying to work through where you're at right now mentally. Have you been to a support group meeting before?
I have called. I don't know exactly how I obtained this gentleman's number. He was Europe or something somewhere, and I had spoken to him for a good hour. He was, a recovering gambling addict, and we just
Mm,
had conversation, and he made some valid points, and him and I seem to be like on the same page. I'm trying to seek a therapist to go to like talk further into all my issues, but it's not that easy because a lot of them don't want to take me as a patient because of the TBI element. So
mm,
it's very limited resource wise to obtain like actual treatment. Like, I did a treatment program for probably 6 months online through a Banyan treatment facility, but they mainly addressed it as substance abuse because of the situation with the TBI. But at that point in time, I wasn't abusing any drugs. It was literally
mm,
just bad luck. I had bought the wrong pill from the wrong person and nearly lost my life. And to be
mm.
perfectly honest with you, I question some days, like, why keep me alive if this is the torment that you're going to put me through, type of thing.
Mm.
I don't know if that makes sense. I just feel like, I know that's the depression talking and everything, but it's just tough to have a positive outlook when it's just negative after negative. All of my doing, I take
Sure.
responsibility for all of it.
I mean, I empathize, but of course, I can't quite fully understand the situation that you're in. But with that being said, what I do understand is how to leave gambling behind.
Mhm.
And following this call, I'm going to help you get in touch with someone that can hopefully talk you through some of these situations. But it must be difficult when people are the trained experts and they don't quite have the background to deal with your exact situation. I can imagine that being very frustrating. But
It is.
I'll do what I can to help you find someone as well, because life is certainly worth living, my friend, and if it's the gambling that's causing the problem, that's something that can be fixed.
I
100%.
appreciate it.
But you also touched on a really interesting point that I think a lot of people will probably relate to, is that when you were drinking, you said it was fueling the gambling. What did
Oh,
that process look like? And, like, what would the gambling have looked like without the drinking?
it's tough to say. I mean, it's kind of a catch 22 though, too. Like the drinking would basically disinhibit me to really focus on the wagers that I was making. And, I don't know if you've done lightning roulette, you just click that times two button and you can keep clicking it, clicking it, clicking it. That's what I would do when I would get to a certain point with the alcohol is I would just keep upping the bets. But at that point in time, I was winning. Like I was winning significant money and still have the capacity to cash out and order thousands of dollars worth of Japanese A5 steaks to cook on the grill, in the days following, and order high end tequila, and like I indulge to a certain extent, but I wish I had bought a supercar or something that at this stage now at least I would have something that I could flip to then help with my finances. But to be honest with you, I think if I did do that, I have a feeling I know what I'd do. I'd go back and try and win it back and think that I could.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Not, I wasn't buying A5 steaks or anything, but I was definitely buying things for pleasure in the moment
Yeah,
that I didn't really think about anything else, because in the back of my mind, I was like, "Oh, if I need more money, I'll just go gamble for it and I'll win it."
yeah,
And it felt like an endless money printer until it was not.
yeah.
So that was what I was going through. And I just want to hear your opinion here, Jeff. Do you have to hit rock bottom to stop, or are you able to realize that enough is enough? Arguably, we've been through a rock bottom or two throughout the conversation, but do you feel like you're able to look back and say there was a point that you could have stopped?
I mean, I'm at rock bottom now. So technically, I have stopped, other than the bonus bets. Enough for me was never enough. I'm going to explore every option humanly possible. I have a massive shoe collection that I could probably sell, some of the higher ticket ones. And like, I've considered it.
I think it's valuable for the audience as well to know that these 20 questions, if you answer yes to more than 7 of them, it's said that you likely have a gambling problem. I personally answered yes to 19 out of the 20. So if you do go 20 for 20, believe me, you're not alone. Did you ever lose time from work or school due to gambling?
No, because I wasn't working at that point. So that's
Okay.
kind of, yeah,
Has gambling ever made your home life unhappy?
yes,
Did gambling affect your reputation?
yes,
Have you ever felt remorse after gambling?
yes,
Did you ever gamble to get money with which to pay debts or otherwise solve financial difficulties?
yes,
Did gambling cause a decrease in your ambition or efficiency?
150%.
After losing, did you feel you must return as soon as possible and win back your losses?
Yes.
After a win, did you have a strong urge to return and win more?
In the beginning, no. Towards the end, yes.
Did you often gamble until all of your money was gone?
Yes.
Did you ever borrow to finance your gambling?
I guess technically, because my parents are supporting my bills, so I guess in a way, yes.
Sure. Have you ever sold anything to finance gambling?
Yes.
Were you reluctant to use gambling money for normal expenditures?
In the beginning, no. Towards the end, yes.
Did gambling make you careless of the welfare of yourself or your family?
Absolutely.
Did you ever gamble longer than you had planned?
I had so much free time. I never planned on, like, I'm going to stop at
Sure.
4 hours. So that's a difficult question for me to answer.
Understood. Have you ever gambled to escape worry, trouble, boredom, loneliness, grief, or loss?
While doing it, I never really thought that that's what I was doing. Looking back, yes, absolutely,
Mm.
that's what I was doing.
Have you ever committed or considered committing an illegal act to finance gambling?
No.
Did gambling cause you to have difficulty in sleeping?
Yes.
Do arguments, disappointments, or frustrations create within you an urge to gamble?
100%.
Did you ever have an urge to celebrate any good fortune by a few hours of gambling?
Yes.
And have you ever considered self destruction or suicide as the result of your gambling?
I mean, the thoughts crossed my mind just with everything that's going on. I'm
Mm.
not saying I'm going to act on it, but
Right.
yeah, it's, I feel like sometimes it'd just be better off just, mainly for my family.
Of course not, though. In
Yeah,
in
no,
reality, I went through similar thoughts, and when I go through the 20 questions myself, that's the one that I usually say no to. But if I was honest with myself, it could have been a borderline yes, because there were plenty of times where I thought, this situation is so messed up and I caused it. If I wasn't around, maybe people wouldn't be struggling through it. But the truth is we get through it. And then all of a sudden, those problems, they start to fade away with time. So just remember that, my friend.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
just want to make sure. Jeff, in your case, do you think that if you were to come into a large sum, whether it's, an inheritance or any kind of large sum, you have a plan for what you would do with it?
I mean, try and get my debts under control. It's just so tough because, like, it's easier said than done. Like, the money's not in
Yeah.
my account yet, so I'm not seeing that dollar figure. Like I might try and justify, well, if there's 20,000 here, that leaves me with a few thousand to play with. I'm just trying to be honest. I don't know what I do. I'd like to think that I would have learned my lesson, but the other part of my brain is just, well, I can win. Tonight's the night. It's difficult because a large sum of money. I don't know. I don't know what defines a large sum of money.
I think for me also, like I lost my ability to see the value of money to a certain extent. For
Absolutely.
me, it just became, numbers on a screen playing a game. Do you feel like you went through that too?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Until that number goes to zero, that's when
Right.
you know what the number is.
It's a shame because I see so many people online. They say things like, when you gamble, you could win 400% back on your money, but you can only lose 100%. And very few people understand what it feels like to see that number hit zero and even sometimes less than zero. So it's really important to have conversations like we're having right now because so many people think they're going to make it big gambling. Did you ever think to yourself, like, I'm going to be a professional gambler?
No, it
No.
was strictly just for entertainment.
Sure.
And towards your comment, like I get kind of frustrated when I see your posts and people make comments like, oh, you're missing out on your one next big bet to win big, and like I don't know, those comments frustrate me, but I know it's just to kind of poke at people. I get that, but
Of course. I mean, think about it logically, though. Like, you and I, we've had big wins. What happened after that?
I lost it all and I'm in debt, you know?
Exactly what happened to me. It's like you're going to have wins if you gamble because that's how it's designed. It's not designed so you lose every bet that you place. But if you keep making bets, eventually, whether it happens today, tomorrow, next week, next month, you lose.
The house has the statistical edge. That's,
Absolutely.
there's no way around that.
There's just
So,
not.
like,
And
I
it's
commend the people that can win the money and set aside X and just say, you know what, I'm just going to play with Y, and if I go through that, I'm done. Like, there's
right.
people that definitely can do it. I'm not one of them. I wish
Me
I
neither.
was.
Me neither. I've gotten this question before, so I'll ask you. Someone said, if you could go back to gambling normally or responsibly, would you?
I mean, yes, but I would say that was in reference to the yes is in reference to like 10 plus years ago, like going to Vegas and like, win 1,000, walk away, lose 1,000, walk away. Like once you get into these type of numbers, I feel like it's a different kind of question for me.
Sure. When I get that question, I say no because I wouldn't want to. If I could have gambled that way, I always would have gambled that way. But for me, it was a compulsion and it was about getting a thrill. And so to think about gambling normally, being okay with like a $25 blackjack loss and walking away and being content with, winning or losing, I don't see the enjoyment in it. And that's, I guess, the problem for me. That feels
Yeah, you
boring.
want to see a big win. You're like, what's 25? Yeah,
Right. I would never be able to go back to that, but in the beginning, that certainly would have been a big thrill, winning anything,
yeah.
but by the end of it, it just I wouldn't go back to it. We've been through quite a lot. We've gone through your story from, front to back. We're at the current moment, present day now. Do you think that you will ever be able to gamble in a way that won't ruin your life?
At this stage, most likely not. Like I said, I'm going to be fully transparent. I'll take their bonus bets and use them and put together parlays. But if I came across significant money, all the apps would have to be deleted. I'd have to self exclude myself from everything. Otherwise, it's all going to be gone. Like I've already considered selling my car to then just go and gamble and try and, win some money. But in doing so, I know what's going to happen. So like, at least I've kind of drawn the line at that point, but I'm just down so much. It's just like, well, car, no car, whatever, like that's
Mm,
kind of my mentality, but I haven't gotten to that point yet. And I'm trying not to.
I understand. Well, yeah, thank you for sharing that. What replaced the thrill of gambling? Nothing. It's not supposed to. Gambling for a compulsive gambler creates such intense pleasure in our brains that we neglect people in our lives. We neglect our financial situation just to place the next bet. You shouldn't be trying to replace that thrill. Doing that's only going to cause a different problem. A lot of people go from gambling to drinking, or they go from drinking to gambling, and it just prolongs the problem in a different way. The truth is, though, as we stay away from gambling, we naturally begin to crave it less. And I just wanted to jump in and address that question because it's really important to know that trying to replace it's just going to prolong the problem. Have you tried to replace gambling with anything else? And if so, what's the experience been?
No, I think I replaced everything else that I was doing with the gambling. So it's kind of
Mm,
the opposite effect for me anyway. What's going to replace that thrill moving forward? I'm not really sure, but I'm
mm,
trying to take the steps, like do like therapy or whatever to, you know, try and get some medical insight on it, for lack of better words. I don't really know, like something to fill the void, to replace, that time gambling. Because like I'd gamble start it when the sun's going down and gamble until the sun's coming up. It feels like I was just gambling for an hour. Like you lose all sense of time.
I can relate to that for sure. It's designed to make you enter what's called the machine zone. So you were playing Lightning Roulette. Lightning Roulette is specifically designed to be highly stimulating and give a bigger thrill than regular roulette, which already gives a pretty big thrill with the option of making 36 times your bet on a number. There's an intentional design to it. This author named Natasha Schull, she wrote this book called Addiction by Design. And essentially, the casinos design all of their games, especially the slot machines, to create a focused attention called the machine zone, where you actually can't think about anything else. You can't conceptualize time or space because you're locked in on the screen. So, the fact that we both went through this situation was not an accident, it was intentional by design. We have to take the accountability to get better, of course. But at the end of the day, any kind of gambling can become an addiction for anyone that's doing it. Was there anything else that you wanted to talk about, or did we manage to cover it all? I think we've
Yeah, I
been
think we
through.
covered it all. I mean, my best advice, and I'm sure yours would be the same, is just don't put yourself in that situation. I mean, if you can control your gambling, then by all means. But once you notice it getting out of control, stop, because you're not going to win. Trust me.
Absolutely. Yeah, always recognize the signs that things could be becoming a problem. And if you're looking for what those signs are, Jeff and I actually went through the 20 questions of gambling addiction a little bit earlier. With that being said, thank you everyone in the chat that's been here. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like on the video. Jeff, thank you so much for your time. And,
Thanks, Rob.
I'm going to be following up with you to see if there's anything that I can do to help with the situation.
Thank you. I appreciate this opportunity. I really do.
Of course, man. And to everyone in the audience, let's just keep getting better together, one day at a time.